So, you want a game with your kids. Hello everyone, I'm Father Aaron, and welcome to The Dungeon Minister! Sometimes I go on other people's channels, people will have me on to interview me, ask about some particular topic, or just to shoot the breeze. Every time I'm on anyone else's channel, I get asked the question, what advice do you have for someone who wants to run a game for their children, who wants to game with their family? I'm asked this because that's what I do. I run a game for my family. I have 3 boys and my wife. I'm the DM, and we play D&D together. In case this is the first time you've found my channel, if this video is your introduction, that's mostly what this channel is about. Recaps of our adventures. And people ask because the adventure is going well, and the group seems to be having a lot of fun. I know I'm having a lot of fun, and everyone else at the table says they are. So people ask me advice about how to do that. Now, I could say, I give advice here and there in little bits and bobs all through my recaps, so go watch my full catalog for more information. Really, the algorithm would love it if you did that, Just go and watch. You don't even have to watch, just go and start one of the playlists and just walk away. If you've got a desktop and a laptop and a phone, the algorithm would love that. Don't do that. But if you do want to start a game with your family and you are looking for some pointers, some tips on how do I do it, well, it would probably be friendlier of me to just make a list, wouldn't it? Yeah. What was it with listicles? I don't know what the ickles part was. Listicles. Anyway, I could do a list. The internet loves lists, right? So, here it is. The Dungeon Minister's 8 steps to gaming with your family. Step 1. Don't change or simplify the rules. I have seen out there all sorts of games intended to, teach kids how to role play. Simplified versions of the rules. And if you're working with really, really young kids, fine. But if your kids are school age, don't bother, all right? Kids are way smarter than adults, or at least their brains are sponges. They soak in everything. They can learn complex. These children know the names of 5,000 different dinosaurs and how to pronounce them, right? I had to have kids before I knew how to say Pachycephalosaurus, all right? I could say it when I was a kid, and then I forgot. And now I can do it again because I have kids. Kids learn the plot lines and the relationships of Star Wars, right? They understand the multiverse thing from the Marvel movies, right? Kids can get it. You do not need to simplify the rules at all. And I'm talking playing Beckme like my family does, which is a pretty simple rule system, but all the way up to AD&D, 1st edition, 2nd edition, 3.5, 4, for heaven's sake, even 5th edition, which people always say is so simple, but not compared to BX or Beckme it isn't, but still, even that. My boys picked that up too, because that's what they play down at the local game shop, so they learned how to play that. They know it just fine, right? You do not have to simplify the rules for kids. If anything, they will teach you. They will teach you some things that you missed in the rules, all right? Now, that said, maybe you don't start with Burning Wheel, all right? But I would say that to an adult group as much as to children. You've heard walk before you run. Well, walk before you do backflips and handsprings and things like that. I mean, beautiful book. Don't get me wrong, but hooey boy. All right. 2. Thematic adjustment may be necessary. All right, so the rules don't need to be changed, but the tone maybe. Demonic possessions and brutality by monsters, tearing apart bodies, rape, things like this. No, not so much, okay? You do need to be aware of your audience. And that's true no matter who you're gaming with. But clearly, obviously, this is common sense. You tone it down a bit for little kids, right? And it will depend upon the kid. For instance, In my own campaign, Touchberry, the halfling, the character is really just gung-ho, all out there, wild and crazy. But his player is actually pretty sensitive. He's a pretty sensitive little boy. Now, this was a year and a half, 2 years ago or something. We played in a magician's tower. It was Barbel's tower. And there was one floor which was an illusion. The entire thing was an illusion. But on that floor, I wanted to lure them in, right? So on that floor, they could hear a crying child. Just the sound of a child crying, lost, alone, hurt, whatever. That really bothered Touchberry's player. Like, he had to leave the table for a bit, bothered, okay? It hadn't occurred to me that that was going to touch it off for him, but be aware. I know that I can't kill animals, like innocent animals in the game. They don't even like fighting like a giant toad. I mean, they will. They'll kill it, right? But they regret it. Whenever they're killing something which is only acting out of instinct, right? Oh, they'll slaughter orcs all day long. No problem. But when it comes to if they're attacked by a giant cat or something, or a bear, yeah, they don't like doing it. They don't like doing it. So fit the mood to the child and understand you are dealing with a child. Even though they're smarter than you, they're probably more sensitive too. 3, it depends on the kids. Okay, so Touchberry was sensitive about the crying child, right? But that's not every kid. I run a game here at the parish, and one of the kids went murder hobo on us, right? Just crazy. And I'm not talking about slaughtering all the goblins, slaughtering all the orcs. Fine. He was slaughtering villagers, right? He was attacking innocent civilians. And it started to get into a, killing as comedy place. You may be dealing with a kid who's got some other issues, right? Right? Killing the orcs, killing the goblins, fine, they're the bad guys. They've been identified as so. They are irredeemably evil. We kill them. Attacking innocent villagers? So watch it with the kids, right? Again, it depends on the child. Some kids are going to shy away from that kind of violence. Others are going to run toward it. Be aware of both. And maybe if you've got a kid for whom violence is a real, turn on or an object of comedy, maybe it's not the right game for that kid. 4, group dynamic. I occasionally take flack on this channel in the comments section from gamers, OSR gamers, who don't like the fact that in the early stages of the game, at least, I shielded my player characters from death, right? They're like, my characters died all the time when I was a kid, and I turned out just fine. All right, edgelords, climb down a bit and listen. There is a different dynamic when you're playing with a group of friends around the table, or strangers, than there is when you're playing with your siblings, especially brothers, where sibling rivalry and, being top dog is really important. Okay, again, I run a game at the parish. I can kill characters off in the parish game, and everyone's fine with that, including my boys who play in that game. They're fine with it because it's a table of friends, and those are the breaks. Characters die. So here at the parish, it's a game, and I'm the priest/DM. At home, they're brothers, and I'm Papa. Be aware of the dynamic, the ages, and the relationships of your group. 5, achievable goals. You're going to have to give some concrete goals, some quests, at least in the early stages of play. I think this applies to adults as well, but especially to children. They want a thing to do. They want to know who the bad guy is, who the good guy is, what would be the good outcome. They want a little bit of that to start with. Just to start with, all right? You need to provide, and again, I say that's true for any role-playing group, adult or child, but you need to give them that on-ramp so they get used to the idea of setting goals and achieving them in the world. Eventually, they will take off and smoke you. They'll leave you in the dust. But start off with things that are relatively concrete and can be solved within maybe 3 sessions tops, right? And with progression markers along the way. We've achieved this part, now we have to achieve that part, and then we'll fight the big bad, right? Make some markers along the way. It helps to retain their interest, their momentum, to keep them engaged, right? Because keeping the attention span, especially for the little ones, is half the battle. The other half is knowing. G.I. Joe! 6. Props help. This is especially true with younger kids. As I said, when we started, Bob Johnny was 6 years old. Well, Bob Johnny's player was 6 years old. And his attention span was all over the place. You know, like a 6-year-old's attention span is, right? And theater of the mind could only go so far with him. He would imagine it. I mean, make no mistake, their imaginations are brilliant at that age. So he could imagine it, but then he would go off in some other direction in his imagination, while on the table, his brothers and I were in a whole other place, and eventually his mama too. We're all in another place, right? So, when we began using miniatures and terrain, it helped him focus, right? The minis made concrete the things that had been conceptual, and the terrain is cool to look at, right? He thought it was really neat to look at. Now, it did open another avenue of distraction, namely him bringing his own minis to the table, you know. Oh, the air elemental lord is going to help us all, you know. I have a gold dragon. He comes in and kills the... You know, okay. But, more or less, it helped focus the game. It helped him pay more attention. So, props can help. Again, know your kids, know your group. 7. A dice tower or a dice tray may save the day. When we started, dice went everywhere, especially from Bob Johnny. He spent more time under the table collecting dice than he did at the table rolling them, right? And we play mostly in the kitchen. And the kitchen table where we play is right next to the refrigerator. I think you can see where this is going. Save yourself the grief. Make or buy a dice tower, especially if you make one. They really love it if you can do that. Or at least a dice tray. Now, the dice tower has the advantage of it's cool to use, right? You put the dice in the top and it goes down, especially if it looks like a stone tower. They love that, right? But even with a dice tray is less cool to roll in. It doesn't have the, looking like a tower thing. But you can impose a table rule, right? Only rolls made in the tray will count. In addition to only roll when the DM tells you to. That's a good rule to have for adults, too. Only rolls in the tray will count. That will help, trust me, that will help save your feet from the horror of a D4. 8. Be prepared to be amazed. I said it before, kids have remarkable imaginations. They have remarkable, untrammeled imaginations. They haven't yet learned what is impossible, so everything can happen, right? They will invent solutions to problems that you set up, and you think, this is going to be the whole session, them trying to get this door open, and like that, they've got it. Because they've thought completely outside of a box you didn't even realize you were in. They will head off on quests that you couldn't have imagined, and you certainly couldn't have prepared for. They will undo your plans and make them so beautiful. They will invent character quirks that open up whole avenues for new adventures. They will completely revolutionize the game if you let their imaginations work. Be prepared to be amazed. And be prepared to ad-lib. Be prepared to come up with things at a moment's notice. I know this is true for any game, adults or children, but especially with kids. Be prepared. They will shock you. 9. Know your stuff. Okay, look. I said it before, kids may teach you things about how the game is played. Know the rules. Read them, reread them, get them under your belt, get them in your head as deep as you can, because kids will test your boundaries. They will poke and prod at all of the edges of the game that you've set up, looking for those creative answers. And the best way to handle that is not to shut it down, but to know the rules so well that you can accommodate it, right? Now, this is a plug for my own favorite edition, BECME. It's true also of the BX and the BX clones out there. The simplicity of that rule set allows so much flexibility. I was playing with a guy, he's an older guy, and he said, the problem with BECME is that there's so few rules, you can't do anything. And I said, are you kidding? There's so few rules, you can do anything. So you need to know those rules, right? You need to have them in your head so that you know where they do flex, where they do bend, and where there is actually a rule for some specific thing that someone wants to do. Because sometimes there's no rule for it, and you need to make a ruling, right? But sometimes there is a rule, and you should know what it is, right? Know the rule set, because again, the kids will push you. They will push you to your limit, understanding the rule set that you're playing. 10. Have fun. Look, if you're playing with your kids or kids who you're close to, members of your family or friends, if you're playing with little kids, they'll play any game if mom or dad is paying attention, right? They'll play any game to be with an adult that they admire and love. They will soak up those moments. They will revel in it. They will look forward to it. They will pester you. When's the next time we can play? When's the next time we can play Dungeons and Dragons? Side note, schedule the game and then keep the schedule. Scheduling it avoids the whole pestering. Can we play today? Can we play today? Can we play today? Right? You say, no, we play on Sunday afternoons. That's when we play, right? Okay. They will love it, right? And you know it's not going to last. Eventually, the very sight of you will inspire deep sighs and eye rolling. You will become the stupidest person on earth. Really enjoy the time when you are the cool one. When you get to hold the game and they love being there with you. All right, well, there is our list, our listicle. There's our list of how to role play with your family. I'm sure it is not exhaustive. This is my list. It is how I have approached the game. It's what has worked for me. It's what I've found out, through trial and error along the way. This is what works for our table. What works for your table? Leave the comments below. Any other advice you have to offer? If you think one of my points was just absolute garbage, tell us. Be polite about it, but let us know. If you thought something that I said needs expanding or you have a question about it, leave it below. I'd like to hear what you have to say. What are you waiting for? Go! Go! Start a game!